chaplains like me that went in without any prior service and just want to love on soldiers and help them find their way, help them to reconnect with family, reconnect with self, reconnect with God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tend to build those relationships, and part of it is because I'm not them, and they know that they can be who they are with me. And I think that's so important. But you're absolutely spot on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I imagine for both the chaplains and the medical corps, it's very similar that they don't want those their troops, when coming to speak to them, to be reserved.
Yeah.
When you want them to be frank, honest, truthful when speaking to them, so they can really connect and do their job. And what was it? Was this something that, did you feel calling for the ministry early on? Did you know when you were younger, or is it something that there's something that kind of clicked in you later?
Yeah, great question. So I ran from it until I went off to college and went to William Carey College over in Hattiesburg for 2 years. And it was there that I really felt God calling me into the ministry. 2 years into college, I had a head-on collision. I was traveling up to a church early in the morning, and car was in my lane, had come over to my lane on a hill, and I got top of the hill, and there they were. And by all, if you'd have looked at the truck, you'd looked at I shouldn't be here today. And the pastor of the church that I was working at, really, he didn't show up at the hospital. He didn't provide any care. And I really got turned off from the church for quite a while. But I began to realize, after going through some really tough times, I came back to my faith and realized that I wouldn't be where I'm at I wouldn't have been where I was at that moment had it not been for, God allowing me to go through that period and understanding sometimes what other people experience. And so it was just a time of reflection and a time of, hey, something's got to change, something's got to give. And I remember sitting in my apartment one day, and my dad called and he said, "Have you ever thought about the military?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." What? He said, "Well, you've been licensed, you've been ordained, and all you really need to do is finish up your master's degree, and the Army will pay for it." And he said, "Just put it in a packet and see what happens." And so I did. And I got the call the day that the board met, because the chaplain corps has their own board. They don't go through the regular Army when it comes to recruiting. And the recruiter calls me and says, "Hey, you're in. You leave in January to go to Officer Basic." And I remember I arrived at Fort Jackson on a Sunday in January, and I remember texting my dad and saying, "What in the hell did you get me into?" And he just laughed and he said, "Just give us some time." And by the end of that 13 weeks, when I left, relationships have been forged that have been lifetime, still today, that I have. And I've loved it ever since.
It sounds like God sending you a none too subtle signal with the car accident.
Yeah.
And did you feel like you were filling in a void, like there was something missing today that you really needed to satisfy, not just within you, but in society?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we know as individuals when something's missing in our life, and we tend to fill it with other things, social media, alcohol. Some guys fill it with porn, women, men. I mean, whatever an individual, male or female, whatever their thing is that they're going to fill that time with. But, I think when it comes down to it, the one thing that's always missing is that peace that only God can give us. And sometimes, I hear people say, "Well, when all else fails, I'll pray." And it's like, why wait till all else has failed? Because that's just like asking for, failure after failure after failure. But I definitely knew at the time that I was missing something in my life. And it's definitely been the military. Looking back now, I'm like, I don't know where I would be today if it hadn't been for my military, training and the relationships and where I've been. So